Welcome back to issue number 6, Howling, Torment of Akira Kizzau. Kizzau began walking again. She needed time to dwell on what Bob had revealed. However, each time a world-threatening situation drew upon the heroics of Mourn, the events tended to increase in magnitude quickly. Her mind spun with doubts as she clenched her hands at her side. Doing as her therapist requested, she found a focus point in order for her emotions to stabilize. "Did I say something wrong?" Bob asked, seeming rather nervous. Kizzau knew the human wizard was only trying to help, but not many on Mourn knew about her bipolar mood swings. Truthfully, only her parents, Ari, Salia, and Snowsong had been in the circle of trust. She could feel the anxiety making her want to lash out, run, hide. Instead, she leaned on Gertrude and let the llama guide her for a few minutes. "What happened to Lunar Twilight and Ghost Comet?" Ariana asked of the wizard. Kizzau smiled, knowing her wife had picked up on the subtle hints that she might be experiencing some trouble. In her peripheral vision, she watched as Ari stepped up close enough to be there if she was needed, but far enough not to trigger something unexpectedly. For a moment, the wizard seemed flustered, but proved he was more than just a rookie at his chosen profession. He changed the topic as it seemed prudent. This seemed to be proven a wise decision, as he soon found Gertrude rumbling at him for a moment. They both left with the walkers on some urgent business that Lunar seemed to have brought to their attention. Without bringing attention to herself, Kizzau tapped a few motions on her wrist to see what information might be present about the walkers. Reports of them entering the tower in the Park District were the last tidbits. The group had not posted anything about why the shadow-clad sister of Ghost Comet might have arrived on the core aspect. Everyone went silent as they walked with the llama to the clearing at the northern end of the Park District. The park rangers had taken up patrols with the withers. For the few hours that remained before the end of the march, no further events transpired. Kizzau was able to breathe and take in all that had happened to them. She hated losing control, which is a trait Ari proclaimed was her greatest strength, but in those moments where the emotional chaos won, Kizzau always felt drained and defeated. They were once again embroiled in another situation that could lead to the end of the world. When she had returned from Earth, she had wanted one thing: to be close to those she cared about. She had spent 6 months rebuilding her life, reconnecting with her wife, visiting her parents, even putting the past between herself and Salia to rest. When she felt things were approaching a place where she could feel safe, Glass Widow, former leader of the Withers, pushed her stalking into a plan that would have destroyed life on a very personal level. Salia, though, had played a dangerous long con, which wound up with Widow imprisoned at long last. 3 years had passed. Life as a heroic and game streamer had been the perfect release and change for Kizzau. It allowed her to have an outlet for her emotions. There were so many Earther games to play. One in particular, Senua's Sacrifice, intimidated her at first. However, once her audience clued her in as the development, she could not get enough. It quickly became her favorite game. Looking over at Ariane, she tilted her head, indicating that the moment had passed. Almost at the same moment, the llama entered the clearing and dispersed, leaving the pair with Gertrude and the others that had walked along with them. "Come up with a plan?" Ari asked. "You know me so well," Kizzau said, "but there really isn't a plan unless we know fully what we're up against. I have been able to determine that the Whippletinger's plan is very deep and clever. And this was all a trap meant to play on unbalancing a specific group of heroics. Us." "Then you must be connected to their larger plan," Bob said. "All the more reason to figure this out." "Where are the other members of your group?" Kizzau asked, watching Pratchett teleport on top of Gertrude. "Surface took them to investigate the other two," Bob said. "We had a good indication that the Whippletinger was somewhere near the Park District. I was left to keep an eye on him." "And who are these other two?" Salia asked, walking over, holding Snowsong's hand. "They ticked off the wrong elves and Ifrit today." One is an ancient witch known as Baba Yaga, Bob said. We were investigating her ties to the events 3 years ago. What? Kizzau said. How does she factor in? In an instant, her control was gone. Ari gripped her shoulders firmly, giving her a tactile sensation to dwell upon. She imagined the pulse of her wife's heart mingling with her own for a moment. We think that Klaus Widow was a pupil of Baba Yaga, Bob continued. The witch has always despised the pantheon, even the fates. Widow's plan reeks of something the witch would concoct. Without waiting for Kizzau to pry her further, Salia stepped forward to grip Bob by his robes. She stared into his eyes with her own teeming with anger. Who is the last of this trio? Out with it. The wizard gulped. We had thought he a story concocted by an earther. His presence on Mourn, though, predates the novel, as does the existence of his kind. Kind? Snowsun asked. Who are we talking about here? Bob looked at them all with a bit of fear in his eyes. Salia lifted him off the ground and growled. Vlad the Impaler, also known to earthers as Dracula, said a voice from behind them. They all turned to find Elric Karza tapping his foot, leaning on his sword once more. I was wondering how long it would take you fools to get going. And with that, we conclude issue number 6, Howling Torment. I will see you all in the near future, and thank you for listening.